Hello YouTube, welcome to another monthly stats video. Let's have a look what September brought us. So in September we generated a total of 697 kilowatt hours. Solux was the biggest contributor, as you'd expect. That is my 5 kilowatt inverter, and that made up 61.5% of all the power that we generated in September. Growatt 2 kilowatt, that's my wall mounted panels, made up 21%, and that should be increasing now as we're getting into the winter months. Those panels are at a more optimum angle for the low winter sun, so that should get bigger, and the roof mounted panels should get a smaller proportion. You can see that my shed mounted solar with the green one, MPP solar, only 3.1%. If we look at the previous month, you can see my shed mounted solar made up nearly 10% of the energy mix, only 5% less than the 1 kilowatt inverter. So I think something's going on there. I think maybe I've lost some data from my MPP solar, and maybe that would account for some of the difference. So of all the power we generated in September, we managed to use almost 95% of it. So we only exported 5%, and that's pretty good. That's the sort of marker I try to aim for. The more the better. Obviously anything you can keep and use yourself is money that you don't have to spend importing anything. So of all the power we used in September, nearly 80% of it was self-generated, and 20% of it has come from the grid. Obviously the days are getting shorter now, and we're not generating enough to feed the house and the cars, and so I'm having to charge the cars up using the cheap night rate electricity available on Octopus Go, and so that's much bigger than the previous month. And yes, as the days continue to get shorter and we head towards December, I expect that blue portion to keep getting bigger. So here's where the power went in September. You can see that we put 8.4% of it into the PHEV, that's about 60 kilowatt hours, and 25% of all of our power went in the Nissan Leaf. 20% of it went heating hot water. I'm now no longer using gas to heat my hot water at all. I'm going to try and use exclusively solar, and when I can't use the solar to heat it, I'll be using cheap night rate 5 pence a kilowatt hour electricity to heat it instead. I'm really trying to push to use as little gas as possible now, and so that immersion ticket should show up as a bigger proportion of my power usage from here onwards. The hot water urn, the kettle, used 5%, and the dishwasher nearly 3%. And we have a new section now, which I've called cooking. If you watch my previous videos, you'll see that I got these new Tasmota smart plugs. So I bought 4 of those and I've put them into action. There's now one on the microwave, there's one on the air fryer, there's one on the steamer, and those combined together, we try and use those as much as possible for cooking now, and not use the main oven too much, and we try not to use the gas hobs too much. So yeah, this cooking section now doesn't include the main oven because I've got no way to measure that at the moment. So this just includes those 3 devices. So we and I only just put those in sort of towards probably the last week in September, so there's very little data this month for that, but next month that should hopefully show up as a more significant portion of our of the energy we used. And then yeah, gaming. One of my sons has now gone off to university, so I expect this portion to reduce now because only one of my sons remains at home, so that should be half the gaming expenditure each month. And then the washing machine, yeah. And then about a quarter of the power is everything else, so that'll be the main oven, fridge, freezer, those sort of things. We imported 170 kilowatt hours, and that mostly would have been for charging up the cars and heating a bit of the hot water. I haven't had to resort to charging up my house batteries from the grid yet. I'm still getting enough solar in the daytimes to recharge the batteries to a state where they're not getting ridiculously low. As we get towards December, there will come a time when I'll have to start charging those up from the grid at night, because on some days you just get so little solar, there just isn't even enough to just run the house, let alone charge the batteries. The best day of September for us was the 7th. On that day we generated 44.5 kilowatt hours. And you can see from the graph that it was a perfect sunny day, not a single cloud in the sky, and you can see here a good example of the green line here is my shed mounted panels, and because it's off grid, it starts to peter off as the batteries get full up, so there's a whole load of generation that just stops, because once the batteries are full, there's nowhere else for it to put it, because it's an off-grid inverter, so it can't export it onto the grid or anything. So that accounts for partly why the shed-mounted solar is always lower than the 1 kilowatt grow-watt inverter, which is a grid-tied inverter, even though they've got similar amount of panels on them. And you can see near the beginning of the day they're almost following the same path, but as the batteries get full, it starts to peter off. The worst day for us in September was the 25th. We generated just 5.5 kilowatt hours on that day, and you can see it was not the worst day I've ever had graphs for, but yeah, not particularly fantastic. Most of the power is coming from the Solax inverter, which makes sense because it's the biggest array. So how does that compare to your best and worst days? Let me know in the comments. So let's now have a look at the import graph, half-hourly usage graphs for the whole of September. You can see that on the 1st I started charging up at night time, and on the 2nd again there's a whole load of nighttime charging there. So our longest streak for September, where we pulled nothing from the grid, was 8 days, which is pretty good for this late in the year, but that's because we had a particularly good September compared to August, which was dire. September was pretty good. We had a decent amount of sunshine. Okay, that's it for September's review. How does that compare to yours? Let me know in the comment section below. It was a good month, much better than August, plenty of sunshine, a really good September. At the end of the year I'll be doing a complete year review, and we'll compare this whole year with previous years and see just how this September compared to the previous September, etc. But in the meantime, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.